American Horror Story has given us some of the most iconic witches in pop history. So today we're going to be covering the strongest witches in the American Horror Story universe. This is going to be a two-part series where I talk about the strongest witch in each coven that we know of so far, and then in my second video I'll be covering every Supreme that we have in the series. At this point in American Horror Story, we've been introduced to three very different types of leaders. First is the Supreme, the second is the Alpha, and the third is the Atour. I'm going to start off with the Supreme because that's the one we most commonly know, then I'll cover the other two at the end. But before we do any of that, we're going to roll into the first video.
Honor comes at the greatest price. Death is not uncommon. Danger, inescapable. Attempting the seven wonders can get you killed. Perform them, and you are the next Supreme.
So in any video that I make regarding the supremacy, you'll hear me say that what we learn about it or what we know about it is largely speculation. There have been many contradictory points in American Horror Story, so I always say that what we know is purely deduced by the witches in the coven, which means that the supremacy itself is still an entirely mysterious force, and we may never uncover its mysteries. With that being said, there are a couple of indicators that mark a Supreme. The first, as referenced in the clip, is the ability to perform the seven wonders. Now, this doesn't mean that a witch who can perform the seven wonders will eventually become the Supreme, because it also takes a mastery as well. And this is something that was never expanded on, so we don't know what mastery means per se. Does it mean the ability to perform a wonder once or several times? It's never elaborated on. The second thing is that a Supreme is marked by glowing health. Again, another contradiction that is in the American Horror Story universe, because the reigning Supreme, Cleverfawx, was unable to conceive a child, which is generally not a health issue unless you want to have a baby. Another thing that I thought I would mention about the Supreme is the fact that just because she's able to perform the seven wonders and has the ability to use a wider range of spells, this does not mean that she has the abilities of all of the witches in her coven. So for instance, if a witch has a genetic disposition toward a certain gift, that doesn't mean that she'll be able to use that gift. Take Zoe Benson's Black Widow abilities or Queenie's ability to perform voodoo. Since those are unique to their bloodlines, a Supreme would not readily have them. However, a Supreme can develop gifts that are outside of the seven wonders. For instance, Fiona did develop the ability to read minds, and this is something that Nan could do as well. Now, there's two methods that can be used to identify a new Supreme. The first is the more preferred method, and that is the reigning Supreme choosing a successor. This eliminates the loss of life within the coven. And then the second, less preferred way, but at times the more necessary way, is the sacred taking. This might be implemented in the event that a Supreme is no longer able to lead and a witch or a coven is desperately in need of a new Supreme, in which case the Supreme must sacrifice her life and the witches must engage in the trial of the seven wonders. Now, you don't want to have to get to this route, and this is why it's imperative that a Supreme chooses a successor instead. The second strongest magic user we're introduced to in American Horror Story is the Alpha. The Alpha is basically the equivalent of a Supreme, but he's not supposed to exist. In fact, he exists mostly in myth and legend, up until the birth of Michael Langdon. Now, what's important about the Alpha is that the Alpha is supposed to supplant the Supreme and lead warlocks back to dominance over the Supreme and the witches. And this is something that causes some strife between the two parties. However, one of the things that sets Michael Langdon apart from other warlocks is the fact that he's a level 4 warlock, meaning that he can perform all 4 of the tests that Hawthorne has, and that he can perform and master the 7 wonders. and this is unheard of, and it puts the witches on edge. Now, the third most powerful magic user that we meet in American Horror Story is the Atour. Basically, that's just Siobhan Corbin, because there's only one. Now, to me, this is the witch who had limitless potential had they developed her character. And sadly, because they didn't, it ended up being wasted potential. However, what we do know makes me think that she is much stronger than the Supreme that we know of. And based on her affiliation, it's very likely she would have supported Michael Langdon if he was a woman. So the Atour, unlike the Supreme, is immortal and has the ability to grant immortality. On top of this, she has the ability to grant powers as well. And sadly, we didn't see the full extent of her gifts, so we'll never know what she was fully capable of. But anyways, let me know who your favorite magic user in the series is so far, and I will see you guys in my next video.